Hi, Craig.
Hi, Craig.
Hi, Craig.
Hi, Craig.
Craig.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the paddock. Today, we are talking all about everyone's favorite dominating driver, Max Verstappen. With you today is Drea, Amy, Casey, LeAnne, and myself, Hannah, and I'm going to start the spotlight off by giving you a little look into Max's younger days. So, Max Emilian Verstappen was born on September 30th, 1997 in Hasselt, Belgium, and is a Dutch and Belgian racing driver who competes under the Dutch flag in Formula One with Red Bull Racing. He has a younger sister, Victoria, but Verstappen's parents separated when he was young, after which he lived with his father while his sister Victoria lived with their mother. Verstappen has three younger half siblings from his father, a sister Blue Jay from his second marriage, and a brother and sister named Jason Jacks and Mila Faye from his current marriage. His family has a long association with motorsports. His father is a Dutch former Formula One driver. His Belgian mother competed in karting, and his first cousin, once removed actually, named Anthony Kumpen, competed in endurance racing and is a two-time NASCAR Whelen Euro Series champion, currently serving as the team manager for PK Car Sports in the Euro Series, actually. Although Verstappen has a Belgian mother and was born in Belgium and resides in Bree, Belgium, he decided to compete with the Dutch racing license because he actually feels a little bit more Dutch, having spent more time there with his father while his mother owning his karting activities, and was always surrounded by Dutch people while growing up in Massiek, a Belgian town at the Dutch border. Verstappen said in 2015, "I actually only lived in Belgium, technically to sleep, but during the day I went to the Netherlands, and my friends were there too. I was raised as a Dutch person, and that's how I feel." So, fun fact, if you didn't know, Verstappen actually speaks three languages: Dutch, English, and German, the latter of which he learned while karting with the famous Michael Schumacher.
Now, of course, with both parents being involved in motorsports, Max got his start in karting pretty young, and then he officially broke into the professional karting circuit in 2005, competing in the Belgian Championship Mini (VIS), where he won all 21 races. And he also competed in the Limburg's Kart Championship Mini Junior, where he placed second, and that would be his last second for a while. Continuing in 2006, he goes on to compete in the Rotax Max Challenge Belgium in the Mini Max category, and again taking first place. And he starts to kind of ramp up his karting in 2007, where he competes in the Dutch Championship Rotax Max Mini Max, the Rotax Max Challenge Belgium National Mini Max, and the Rotax Max Challenge Belgium Mini Max, winning all three. That's a lot of maxes for Max. He continued his kind of karting championship here, and then in 2008, the domination continues as he wins the Rotax Max Challenge Belgium Mini Max again, and he also raced in and won the inaugural BNL Karting Series Mini Max. He also moved up a class into the cadet class of racing and competed in the 2008 RICB Belgian Karting Championship in that cadet class, and of course, once again, he won. During his first initial years of karting, Max races in a CRG kart entered by his father. But this is just the beginning of his karting dominance and racing, and so Drea will kind of take us through the next couple years.
Yes, so in 2009, Max joined a CRG customer team, and he won the Flemish Mini Max Championship. There we go again with the Mini Maxes. That same year, he also won the Belgian KF5 Championship, already seeing a trend. In 2010, because he was dominating at this level, he decided to take on a more challenging series, and he entered the International Karting, where he was signed by CRG to race in their World and European Championships. Something I never thought I'd say, but at the KF3 World Championship, Max came in second behind Alex Albon. Goes to show that most of the F1 grid grew up together karting. Max then beat Alex at WSK Euro Series, and he won the WSK World Series. For this being his first year at the international level, it's showing He did not need much time to find his feet at the new level. The next year, he again won the WSK Euro Series. Surprise, surprise, it's sounding a little too familiar. And in 2012, he decided to enter the Intrepid driver program that allowed him to race in KF2 and KZ2 classes. Good thing he did, because he won the WSK Master Series in KF2 and the South Garda Winter Cup. Because he was so good here, he announced he would be leaving Intrepid. He was so good, man said, I don't even need competition anymore. So he went to a different series. So after he won the WKZ championship, making record books at being the youngest driver to ever win the KZ World Championship, he also got his first experience in a real race car. It was at Pimbury Circuit on October 11th of 2013 for 160 laps in a Formula Renault car by MP Motorsport. He was tested for many Formula Renault 2.0 teams. Like, there's a huge list that they saw his talent, and he just tested for everything and tried to get his feet wet at everything. So in 2014, at the beginning of the year, Max announced he would be making a debut in the Florida Winter Series, and they don't have a championship period, so he really was very confident in his skills. And he finally made his way downtown to a single-seater car. He won at Palm Beach International Raceway, starting from pole. He won again at Homestead Miami Speedway by the skin of his teeth, beating Latifi, aka Goat Tifi, by 0.004 of a second. Since Max is an adrenaline junkie, he also entered into the FIA European Formula 3 Championship under the Van Amersfoort Racing. I'm sorry if I butchered that. At this point, Mans is 16, breaking hella records with 6 consecutive wins in the series, 10 total wins, 8 retirements, and 1 did not start, all to get 3rd place in that championship. Next, we'll find out what he did after.
So I'm going to take this as a quick moment to tell everybody to pause, go grab a drink, maybe grab a snack, because we're going to be here for a little bit longer, because this man has done it all. Now, Max finally gets a little bit of Formula One action, and we're going to start off with 2014. Picture this. It is August of 2014, and Max was just announced to be joining the Red Bull Junior team. Now, at 17 and 3 days old, Max Verstappen was the youngest person in history to participate in a Formula One race weekend when he debuted. He replaced Jean-Eric Vergne in FP1 at the 2014 Japanese Grand Prix as part of his preparation for a full-time seat at Toro Rosso starting in 2015. He was quoted as saying that he, quote, left plenty in reserve when he made his F1 race weekend debut in the first practice session at Suzuka. He turned 17 on Tuesday, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. He made history by becoming the youngest driver ever to participate in a Grand Prix weekend. He did 22 laps in the STR9 and was about 0.04 of a second slower than Daniel Kvyat, he had to stop because of a broken exhaust valve. There's also an interview where he was quoted as saying, I was not taking any risks and I drove within my limits for all the season, doing as much mileage as possible. I have to thank Red Bull and Scuderia Toro Rosso for giving me the possibility to be in the car already this year on Fridays and get well prepared for the next year. I find myself very comfortable in this team and I like my working group. Max was actually tapped to drive in all of the remaining free practice sessions, except in Russia, because he was competing in the European Formula 3 Championship at Imola that weekend, so he wasn't available. Now, everybody, and I mean quite literally almost everybody, I'm talking Mika Hakkinen, former FIA President Jean Todt, 1997 World Champion Jacques Villeneuve, were all saying that Max was, quote, too young to join the sport. Get it, he was 17. That is a little young when you think about it, but if he can drive a car, why can't he compete in Formula One? That's just my personal perspective. And now I'm going to take us a little bit further, and we're going to hit 2015. Now, after 3 FP1 appearances in 2014 and a relatively short winter testing program, Max made his Grand Prix debut at the 2015 Austrian Grand Prix. Now, he's 17 years old and 166 days, give or take, and he was again making history as the youngest driver in the history of the sport. In his first race, Max ran in point-scoring positions
until he was forced to retire due to an engine failure. 2 weeks after that, he grabbed another record by becoming Formula One's youngest point scorer with 7th place at the Malaysian Grand Prix. Now, in Monaco, we saw a high-speed crash with Max and Romain Grosjean, where Max was given a 5-place grid penalty for causing the accident and was called, quote, dangerous by Williams driver Felipe Massa. Max continued to regularly finish in the points, as well as achieving his best finish of the season in Hungary by finishing 4th, and equaled that result at the US Grand Prix. The FIA awards ceremony at the end of the year, he won Rookie of the Year, Personality of the Year, and Action of the Year for his overtake on Felipe Nasser at the Belgian Grand Prix. Now, in 2016, Max began the season at Toro Rosso again with Carlos Sainz by his side. Max qualified 5th for the opening race of the season in Australia, and during the race, he made several radio calls to the team in frustration, being behind Carlos on track before his Toro Rosso came into contact with Carlos's car while attempting to pass him with 3 laps to go in the race. Max did end up finishing the race in 10th. He enjoyed a lot more successful weekends in Bahrain by scoring 6th and scoring Toro Rosso's first ever points at the circuit. Finished in the points 3 times in his first 3 races in 2016. Now, it's May of 2016, and it's after the Russian Grand Prix. Red Bull has officially announced that Max is going to be replacing Daniel Kvyat from the Spanish Grand Prix moving forward, and Daniel Kvyat is going back to Toro Rosso. Hanna was quoted as saying, Max has proven to be an outstanding young talent. His performance at Toro Rosso has been impressive so far, and we are pleased to give him the opportunity to drive for Red Bull Racing. Now, I know a lot of people really don't love the way that whole situation was handled, but it is what it is, and we get a whole new era of Max, a whole new type of Max Verstappen domination. Red Bull. Now, 2016 and its Spanish Grand Prix, Max qualified 4th and ended up rising to 2nd behind his teammate at the opening lap after the Mercedes duo crashed out in the race. Max took the race lead as he was placed on a 2-stop. He was able to hold off Ferrari's Kimi Räikkönen in the later stages of the race to take his first Formula One victory. Doing this, he displaced Sebastian Vettel as the youngest driver ever to win a Formula One Grand Prix at the age of 18 years and 228 days. In his first 8 races with Red Bull, he achieved 6 top 5 finishes, including 4 podiums, which is just ridiculous when you think about it. Now, later in the season, we do see a little bit of drama for Max, where Max is colliding with Kimi Räikkönen to a first corner and pushing Sebastian Vettel, Kimi Räikkönen, and Sergio Perez wide, and then aggressively blocking Kimi Räikkönen. He was seriously criticized for his driving, saying that he was going to cause a huge accident sooner or later, and Christian Horner was noted that saying that the driver was, quote, on edge, and that Verstappen will, again, quote, look at it and learn for future races. He even got called in by the Formula One director, Charlie Whiting, was given a, quote, gentle warning due to his aggressive driving. All of this did actually end up changing some FIA laws or rules disallowed moving under braking. Now, if we're going to talk about moments for Max, I kind of have to bring up the Brazilian Grand Prix as a moment for Max. He qualified 4th and then in the race almost hits a barrier after sliding on the main straight due to loss of traction, and then has an issue with an additional tire change from intermediates back to rain tires when there's a weather change, which leads him to be running in 16th place with 15 laps to go. As we all have kind of figured out over time, we get some true Max Verstappen energy. He finishes on the podium in 3rd place. And this is where we get the fantastic Toto Wolff quote of him calling it the Verstappen show. And also my personal favorite quote describing Max's driving as physics being redefined. If you haven't figured it out by now, the man is just unstoppable, and it just keeps going into 2017 and on.
And now into 2017. So during the first 14 races of the 2017 season, Max suffered 7 retirements, 4 due to mechanical issues, 3 due to first lap collisions. actually in Spain. Twice Max started a race from P16 in China and the USGP, his worst starting position of the season so far, and both times he actually ended up finishing third. After a magnificent catch-up race, he was unfortunately stripped of his third place finish in the USGP, resulting in him being fourth in the final standings, and a repeat of what happened to him last year in Mexico as well. From the Malaysia GP, a whirlwind Max had a surge of success where he won his second F1 race of the 2017 season at the Malaysia GP, which was actually a day after his 20th birthday. Fun fact. So with 13 DNFs, the highest number since 2017, and 13 podiums, it was quite an unstable season for the Red Bull Racing team with an, crazy actually name of their car, which was the RB13. I don't know if that was good luck or bad luck. Max was forced to drop out in 7 races, nearly as many times as in 2015 and 2016 combined, which was 8 DNFs. He also drove the least laps of all drivers who partook in all of the races. The remaining 13 races that Max finished, with an exception of Monza, where he came in 10th, were all top 5 finishes. So, I don't know, but that did not go into the 2018 season. So, to go into the 2018 season, in the first 6 races of the season, Verstappen actually was involved in at least one incident in each race. But even after a spotty first half of the season, he actually had a very strong second half of the season, achieving a podium finish in Belgium, Singapore, Japan, and the USGPs. I will just say, because I love the duo, and the duo is Danny and Max, that became teammates at Red Bull. They were very competitive, and I always wondered, even though Max is undoubtedly a very strong driver, if Danny helped push him to be who he is today. I will say at the Brazilian GP, where he overtook Räikkönen, Vettel, and Bottas and Hamilton, he, however, did collide with Force India driver at the time, Esteban Ocon, who was trying to unlap himself on faster tires. Once received a 10-second stop and go penalty for the incident. But here's where it gets interesting. After the collision, Max finished a second place behind Hamilton, but got into an argument with Ocon where Verstappen was seen pushing Esti Bessie, also known as Esteban Ocon, for which he was given a 2 days of public service as a penalty by the FIA. LOL. And if you haven't seen that, I recommend going to see that. But overall, if you look back at that season, Verstappen ended the season in 4th place in the championship with 249 points, claiming 2 wins, 11 podium finishes, along with 2 fastest laps. So into probably one of my favorite years of Max Verstappen, 2019, because this is kind of where you start seeing some of the dominance kind of take over. So this year at Red Bull, actually switched from a Renault power unit over to a Honda power unit, and my favorite love, Ricciardo, former teammate, moved to Renault and was joined by his new teammate, Pierre Gasly. It also became Max's strongest season so far to date. The most chaotic races of the 2019 season were both won by Verstappen. He mastered wet weather at Hockenheim to take a commanding German Grand Prix win, and he controlled the field through multiple safety car periods in Brazil to win there for the very first time. It was also a year of firsts for Verstappen. He finally claimed his first pole position at the Hungarian Grand Prix. He would go to set the fastest lap time in qualifying twice more later in the season in Mexico and Brazil. While Red Bull's form dropped slightly in the second half of the season, and Verstappen himself recorded 2 DNFs following contact in Belgium and Japan, there were still very high points with him ending the year with a run of 3 podium finishes, where he was more consistent in 2019, which actually allowed him to really fight. So Verstappen finished the 2019 season in third in the championship with 278 points. He claimed 3 race victories, 9 podium finishes, 2 pole positions, and 3 fastest laps. Now on to 2020. So Verstappen signed a contract extension with Red Bull until the end of 2023, where he was racing now alongside driver Alex Albon. The Dutchman may have finished only 12 races this year, but when he did finish, he almost always was on the podium. His 6th place in the Turkish Grand Prix, a race which he could have won if not for spinning when attempting to pass Sergio Perez, is the only time he finished in a non-podium position this year. More impressive still, of the 795 laps which he raced this year, only 95 were not spent inside the top 3 positions. Verstappen secured Red Bull's only 2 wins this year, though, with victories in the 70th anniversary Grand Prix at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Red Bull were not a consistent challenger, though, to Mercedes in 2020. But Verstappen's consistent podium finishes meant that he did get close to beating Valtteri Bottas for 2nd place in the Drivers' Championship, eventually ending up only 9 points away from the Finn's total. I will say on average, though, he had 2/10 advantage per sector if you look at comparison with Alex Albon in qualifying this year, and evidently became like the most dominating Red Bull driver and becoming like the first driver at Red Bull. If you haven't noticed, that was kind of set in stone then. Verstappen finished, though, the 2020 season in 3rd place in the championship with 214 points. He claimed 2 race victories, 11 podium finishes, 1 pole position, and 3 fastest laps.
Now, in 2021, we see Max really starts to step into his own after his 3rd place finish in the previous year. At the Bahrain Grand Prix, he topped all of the practice sessions and subsequently took a 4th career pole position in qualifying. This was the first time he had achieved a back-to-back pole position. He had to fight Lewis for the race victory, and on lap 53, he did overtake Lewis, but he actually ended up going off track while doing so. He was instructed by race control to let Lewis back into the lead and ultimately finished 2nd behind Lewis for the race. Now, at the United States Grand Prix, he took pole position in qualifying and he won the race and extended his lead in the Drivers' Championships to 12 points as Lewis finished 2nd with the fastest lap. I know we all remember how close the points battle with Lewis and Max was throughout the 2021 season. By Abu Dhabi, Max and Lewis came into the weekend equal on points in the Drivers' Championship going into the final round. And everybody obviously remembers this moment from whether it's watching the race live or Drive to Survive, when Max overtook Lewis on the final lap to win the race and his first Formula One Drivers' Championship. Max was behind Lewis by over 10 seconds until a late safety car was called up due to a crash at turn 14. When the safety car came in and the race restarted, it was obviously absolute chaos. And we all remember the iconic scene with Michael Massey, where he allowed only a certain number of lapped cars through, and Verstappen was able to pass Hamilton at turn 5 on the final lap of the race to become the 34th Formula One world champ. And a subsequent "No, Michael, no, that's so not fair" radio call came through. Mercedes obviously submitted their protest, but it changed the rules in the end, where they now have changed the rules where it specifies that all cars will unlap themselves at the race director's discretion rather than car. Now, if we look at Max throughout the season from a statistics perspective, he had 10 P1 finishes, 8 P2 finishes, 1 P9 finish, 3 DNFs, and 6 fastest laps overall. Now, in 2022, a lot of fans might consider this the start of the real Max domination era, but you can judge that for yourself on when you think the domination really started. It's March, and we see Max sign a 5-year contract extension with Red Bull Racing. The 2023 season all the way till 2028. That's right, y'all. We're seeing this man race until at least 2028. Now, he suffered two fuel system related retirements in the first three races of the 2022 season, finding himself 46 points behind champion leader Charles Leclerc. He responded by winning 5 of the next 7 races, which allowed him to take the championship lead and build a gap of 37 points over second place, which was being held by his teammate Sergio Perez. Overall, Max won a record-breaking 15 races this year, including 9 of the last 11 races, setting the new benchmark for the most wins in a season. If you haven't figured it out by now, the man likes to set records and anything that's going to get him in a history book, it seems. He has surpassed the previous record of 13, which was held by both Michael Schumacher and Sebastian Vettel. And he also managed to lock down the World Drivers' Championship by the Japanese Grand Prix. He finished on the podium 17 times in 2022. The third place finish in Monaco, a second place in Austria to go along with his 15 wins. He did not match the record for the most podiums in a season, 18, but obviously he set it the year before. He took the fastest lap 5 times, although he did not achieve his feat in the final 7 races of the season. It was still good enough to win the DHL award for the most fastest laps in a season. Now, we're up to current day and it's 2023. As I previously mentioned, Max's contract is still good until 2028, which I think is actually one of the longest contracts we've got on the grid, unless you count Lance Stroll as someone who has like an unending contract. But it just kind of seems like the domination is just going to keep coming from him.
I mean, the year domination is kind of already shown as it's only over the midway point of the 2023 F1 season, and the chances of anyone other than Max Verstappen being crowned champion looks very slim to none. He's got a 110-point lead over his teammate Sergio Perez, if I'm not mistaken. And Sergio Perez is in second place in the Drivers' Championship. He's commanding the first place position.
Now, I love looking at Max from like a stats perspective as a driver because, as Hannah mentioned, we're only midway through. He's had 7 pole positions so far and pulled out 6 fastest laps. While some of them may have been due to a last-minute pit stop, it's just kind of like that's his new thing at this moment. It's just crazy to look at his statistics and see how consistent he is. Some of it might be the car, but I think most of it, in my personal opinion, really just has to be his talent. If you look at everything he's done in motorsport, he's just really consistent.
So I will just go off what Amy said with being like bringing the statistic hat back on. Although he is still several races short of making it mathematically impossible for someone to take his title per se, bearing there is a remarkable turn of events, aka Red Bull car just takes a shit. It will be a matter of when, not if, that Max Verstappen becomes a 3-time world champion. But I am going to change the conversation from being a statistics over to the fun year of just seeing Max Verstappen and Daniel Ricciardo back together, even if it was technically from afar, because we spent the beginning of the season with Danny being the third driver for Red Bull, so we got to see some fun love dynamic from there.
Now, I know I've definitely said this before, and I'll probably say it a million times to come. I love getting to see Maxwell in action. It's just so good. They're just so good together. And Red Bull admins really know what the fans want because they've just been giving us so much Maxwell content. It's the beginning of the season, since even before the start of the season. It was just content overload, and I love it. And even now, I mean, the Yuki and Max content that we've been getting, and the Yuki and Danny, and like, it's just really been giving us a side of Max that I don't think we've been able to see in the past. Like, you're actually seeing how sweet he can be, and like more of his personality, and like, I know people have heard me say it on the podcast before, but I love getting to see like Maxie come out. His softer side where he's not necessarily in like race mode. And the admins have been just doing a great job at really giving all of the content and all of the goods.
I will also say it's been interesting to see the dynamic of all three of them and seeing like Max and Danny like overtake the dynamic. Poor Perez. But we're going to talk a little bit about his life outside of F1. So in his free time, Verstappen enjoys sim racing, having taken part in many sim racing competitions. Verstappen stated that it helps him with his real life racing, actually, keeping him ready to go at all times. And Verstappen is a member of Team Redline, a multinational sim racing team.
And Max is even taking his sim racing to the next level, planning on starting a GT3 real life racing team with Verstappen.com Racing, which is kind of his organization, and Team Redline, which is also his. And so GT3 is Grand Touring, and it's a category of racing that uses modified high performance sports cars that you technically could buy, but these are modified specifically for a track. And he hopes to get the team up and running by as soon as 2025, stating the ultimate goal is to set up our own racing team. We will start in the GT3 class, and then we will see where the ship sails. So it'll be interesting to see Max explore, different aspects of racing that isn't, single-seater open-wheeled racing. And maybe even kind of seeing him step into the role of more of like a team boss. Because we've only seen him as a racer, so kind of see the management side, and perhaps that will be, a sign of many decades to come after he is retired. We might see him come back, take over for Christian. Who knows? But of course it wouldn't be Max without wanting to win. Saying, when I do something, I want to do it well. I want to win, even with this. So best of luck to his new racing team. It'll be exciting to see Verstappen.com Racing out on the track.
So with this one, I'm not going to dive too far in because I feel like I could talk about his car collection all day because it's very extensive. But this man is known for luxury cars. And I mean, when you're a two-time, almost three-time world champion, why not? He's got an extensive car collection, a private jet, and I'm pretty sure he's got a yacht. And you can see him jet skiing in Monaco. Just gonna say, must be nice.
Actually, they just posted, I think one of his friends just posted a video of him driving the new Aston Martin Valkyrie around Monaco. And then you can even see like pictures of him driving like around Monaco as well. So super cool. And I believe his private jet is colloquially known as Air Max because he often shuttles other drivers to and from races on his plane.
Yes, there is a video of him driving the Valkyrie, and that thing sounds so freaking cool. That's a whole nother episode. But they do call it Air Max, and my favorite thing about his private jet is, unless he's changed it, it has a big orange lion as its emblem on the end of the jet. So it's like branded Max Verstappen, but without like saying MV. Like it's the lion head that he puts on pretty much the top of all of his helmets, and it's very on brand, and as a Brandon girl, I can really appreciate it.
Max is a very if you know guy, where it's not too in your face, but if you know about it, it's there. He's also stated that it's in his contract if the car is not good, he can dip out. Considering though that Pierre once questioned why they were in a tiny like little airplane and if it was safe, he was like, is this safe? And Yuki's over here freaking out. He was like, oh wait, Max is here. They're going to protect him at all costs. We're fine. It's okay. They won't ever injure him or put him at risk. So I think he's going to stay there a while. But he also, on his documentary, has stated that he would love to just get old and eat whatever he wants, because right now he can't, since they have to maintain their weight to keep the weight of the car on the same level, and ride a motorcycle. That is what he wishes for when he retires. And he also states that racing is not the only thing he will do in F1. Like, he wants to try other things. So I'm hopeful for his future.
Yeah, like Drea said, he always talked about saying that, like, Formula One was not everything. That he's like wanted to try Indy, that he's wanted to try to the Le Mans. There's been talks of him doing MotoGP. I don't know about that one, to be frankly honest with you, but why not? Maybe he'll try Formula E. I mean, you never know.
I mean, there's a video on the Red Bull YouTube channel where he's learning how to drift in like a drift car. If you haven't watched it, 10 out of 10 recommend. It's really cool. It's crazy to just watch how fast he picks it up. He's getting very little instruction from a professional drifter, and he's picking it up after like maybe 2 mistakes. And it's just like, well, damn, kid. I just feel like Max is somebody who's going to do it all. I really want to see him do rally. I think he would have an absolute blast doing rally, a la Fernando Alonso. I feel like he's a gearhead. He's not just a racer. I feel like he just loves cars. And so any excuse for him to do something with a motor and go fast, he's absolutely game for. And I just adore that about him. I think it's what makes him, for me, feel so relatable, because I'm the same way where I'm like, I can to a cool car? Absolutely.
I can actually totally see him pulling a Fernando Alonso, where he retires after his contract ends in 2028, and he just spends a couple years just doing absolutely everything, rally, endurance, maybe a couple Le Mans runs, try out IndyCar, just kind of exploring life. But then I think he might miss F1, and we might see him again come back and actually race. But I think we'll see him spend a couple years in multiple categories.
And then just furthermore, like Drea had mentioned, Max does have a documentary out there. So if you haven't seen it, I would highly recommend going and see that, because it is worth the watch. And now for probably my favorite part of the night, the pre-outro. And tonight is a driver quote. So a quote I've heard Max say more than once probably is, "I always try to get the best result out of it. I am not there to just sit second or sit third. I'm a winner, and I want to win every single race, and I will always go for it, 100%. And with that, I am pretty sure he pushes himself harder than actually anyone on the grid, to be honest with you. I mean, he stated after a rough race in Monaco, I think in 2018, he could break down the whole garage from being just upset about his mistakes. So he's like very in it to win it, 110% on all times.
As someone that has mainly only heard the media portrayal of Max, it was honestly so nice to be here for this episode. What's your favorite Max moment? Let us know on our socials. Everywhere we are at Paddock Girls Podcast, except Twitter. There you can find us at Paddock Girls Pod. And don't forget to share, rate, and review the podcast wherever you listen, like Apple Podcast or Spotify. And don't forget, you can now check out our episodes on TikTok, so definitely follow that. The countdown to lights out is basically over, because next episode we are talking Dutch predictions. So with that, thank you so much for joining us in the paddock. We'll see you in Zandvoort. Bye, Craig.
See ya, Craig.
Bye, Craig.
Bye, Craig. Bye, Craig.